Here is the DATEX2. This device allows you to have 2 or 3, if you get the DateX3, batteries on your bike without having to do any special wiring or anything like that. This basically turns your batteries into parallel connections and shares the battery capacity and is more efficient. And there is a video from Big Game Bikes that I will leave a link down in the description that will explain all of this. But this is the device we're going to work with to hook up 2 batteries to the RIDEAL. What I did is I labeled everything. So on the outer ends there are inputs, and on the inner 2 here there's outputs. So your inputs of course are going to be your battery. So I labeled mine second battery and RIDEAL battery. You can do whatever. You don't even have to label these if you don't want. But just remember, inputs for your battery, outputs for your controller. The outputs are female ends on the XT60. The inputs are the male ends. So you can see how they have a prong in here, and this one has a female prong. This is male, this is female. So when you create your cable, you're basically going to do your XT60 and just make sure that the other end matches up with your battery cable. So on this particular one, and probably all the RIDEALs are going to have a 2-prong like this that goes into the battery connector, and then an XT60 that goes to the DateX2. So I'll explain that a little bit more in just a second. So down here we have our cables that I made. You essentially just make 2 cables. If you have an XT60 already on this side, you don't have to do anything with it. But I had Anderson plugs on my housing. If you bought the one from Luna that I was showing you in my previous video, it had Anderson plugs, but you can basically just cut these and swap the connection and make it an XT60. I crimped everything just because it's easier, and the crimp connectors are in the heat shrink wrap right here, so you can't really see it, and it looks really nice. I did the same thing to this cable. I got a bunch of little shrink wrap. That's all I had at the time, but then I found some really long 10-foot pieces on Amazon for my other cable. So this is your second battery. It's going to go inside your bag or your box or whatever you decide to put on the rack back here. Like I got a bag. That's where my battery's going, and I do have a box on the way, so that'll be changing pretty soon. But we're going to basically take the second battery, which I'll hook up later. Now, another thing to note, when you make these cables, make sure you take your batteries off the housing so that they're not connected, because if you accidentally touch these 2 wires together when you're cutting them or making the cable, you're gonna get a big spark. So don't forget about that. Take your battery off. Same with the stock battery housing. Take your battery off of that. So this is just going to go in the back. We're going to set that to the side. So earlier we unplugged this cable. One of these cables goes to the battery housing. It goes up through the frame and connects to here. And as you can see, it has the female end. Oh, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a female end in there. So the cable we created for this is the male end. And this just basically plugs into here, like so. So we'll line up the arrows. There's an arrow on here, and there should be an arrow on here. So basically this 2-prong will go and plug into this 2-prong, like so. And then what we'll do is we'll run this cable up through the frame up to the bag. So just slip it up there and it'll just dangle up here for a second until we hook everything up and zip tie everything so it looks nice. And then this other one, which is a male end on the controller side, will be the female end for the cable we make. So you're going to make two of these cables. They're 30 inches long, and one end's going to be XT60 and the other end's going to be the 2-prong plug. Now this cable was a one-piece cable at one point, and we just split it in two and created two separate cables so we could use these ends to connect to the RIDEAL. So this cable has a female end on the plug side and a male XT60 that'll plug into the DateX2 device. If you want to put everything back to stock but leave it all in the bag, you'll basically just unplug the two XT60s, the one from the controller and the one from the RIDEAL battery, and plug them up in the bag, and then essentially it'll be back to stock. That's really all you have to do if you want to bypass the DateX2 device and have some room for storage or something if you need to do that. So this one goes to the controller, so we're going to just plug that in to this cable. Again, you're going to have arrows, and you just match up your arrows and plug that in like that. So then we'll run this cable same way up through the frame. We'll go up here next to the other one, and we'll zip tie all these when we get done here. Basically, you're just taking that cable that connects the factory battery to the controller and splitting it into two and running those up. It's pretty simple and straightforward. And then you can do some wire management to make it look nice. And then what we'll do is we'll go up into the bag, and this is where we will put our battery in the bag with the housing that came with the battery. Now, if you have another battery, which I do have another battery that is just a brick, and you can use that too. So with this system, you can use any battery. You don't have to use the one that I showed you before, which is nice. You can use the housing one that you bought if you already bought one, or you can buy a different battery, all the way up to however many amp hours you want. It does not matter if they're the same or not. They will work together independently, but kind of shared. So we're going to put this in the bag, slap our battery on here, and battery on there, over there, and we're going to hook everything together, and we'll come back. Alright, so now we got our battery and the housing in here. So we'll take the DateX2 device, look for the one that says second battery, and we'll just plug the second battery right into here, like so. And then we'll take our cables that we ran up, make sure we know which one goes to what. So this one's for the RIDEAL battery, and we'll plug that in the one that says RIDEAL battery, like so. And then the final one, which is going to the controller, we'll plug that in here that says controller. Here we go. And now we have a connection. Now I'm not going to cut into this bag or anything. I'm just going to run it up here and kind of just set everything inside. But it's that simple. I'll go back through and zip tie all this so it looks nice. But now you basically have two batteries hooked up to your RIDEAL. Now they do make another device, well, they make a couple different ones. So they make a DateX2 with a charging port, so you can charge both batteries at the same time. It's a little bit more expensive, but you do have that option. They're available on their website. And then they have a DateX3, which basically has 6 XT60 connections, 3 inputs, 3 outputs. So you can connect 3 batteries. And they also have a DateX3 with the charging port, so you can charge all 3 batteries at the same time. So it's really up to you on what you want to do. If you do a lot of delivery service or commuting, or you go long distance on your bike, the DateX 3 might be perfect for you. I went with the DateX 2 just to save a little bit of money and to show you how it all works. So now all I gotta do is go get my RIDEAL battery, connect it, and make sure the bike turns on. There we go. Now let's hit the button on the egg rider. And as you can see, we have power now. So this has our battery level, and it will basically give you the level of both batteries combined. So I'll charge both of my batteries, and I'll show you that on the ride footage when I go out and test these. But as you can see, pretty easy setup, pretty easy install. It only takes a few minutes to make your cables, as long as you have all the parts. And again, I will leave a link to these XT60 connections, the DateX 2, the wire, the shrink wrap, the cables that we use, the red and black wire, and the crimping tools and the crimp connectors, and then that plug I showed you earlier. I'll leave a link to all of this stuff on where you get it and all of that. So again, the install is really easy, and I'll just go through and wire manage this. And then the next video we'll go through and I'll do a couple tests just to show you how it all works, and then we'll go from there. So you can use this device on any bike with any battery, so 52 volt, 48 volt, 36 volt, doesn't matter, as long as they have an XT60 connection on the end. And if they don't, you can make your own and then connect them to this device, and you'll have more than one battery on your bike. And I want to give a special shout out to Jim Beckman, who's been helping me through this process. He did the install first and has had this device for a couple weeks and has been testing it, and so far it's been working great for him. So I just want to give him a thank you for all the help and the guidance along the way. Hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe. See you later.